Cool Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yamin of Revolution. We got a World War III alert. U.S. troops forced to hide in the Middle East. Before we get into that, y'all be sure to wipe y'all feet. That means hit the like button. You in the House of Revolution. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform, y'all. Let's get right into the content.
Donald Trump is living through a Monday from hell right now and apparently is begging for another mediation with Iran as Iran is pummeling U.S. bases in the Middle East. Donald Trump is fearing for his life and also has been forced to admit late last night that he will not be using Qatari Air Force One for the foreseeable future, at least 1 month until it is maxed out with some defense capabilities because Trump fears that Iran is trying to kill him. Iran has been putting up billboards throughout their country that look like this: "Hey, terrorists, get ready to die. Who is the next one?" And then it has D and T that are bigger than the other letters. Then it says hashtag Lindsey Graham. Oddly, Donald Trump's been posting photos of himself in the Oval Office with Lindsey Graham this morning. They have these photos in Iran of Donald Trump in a casket. And when you zoom in on some of these billboards, it says hashtag we kill Trump. And now at the same time, Iran is posting those images. I just found it notable as well this morning that FIFA cropped out Donald Trump from the stage with Spain at the World Cup finals when Spain won and Donald Trump tried to inject himself in that photo. Also, Spain edited out Donald Trump from that photo as well that they've been posting on social media. And Donald Trump was just there. Everyone's like, get out of this photo. I think it's also notable, as one commentator notes, when you ask the nation to go to war and we have troops getting killed right now in the Middle East, as Donald Trump also doesn't even have the right interceptors anymore in the Middle East, and our troops are just out there just being, so vulnerable. When you ask the nation to go to war, the first family should not be posting this. Take a look at the Trump family all posting being at the World Cup and having the time of their life. Now, juxtapose it to these photos right here as we learn the identity of our troops who have been killed in the Middle East as a result of Donald Trump's catastrophic war. Private Isabella Gonzalez, 19 years old, of Carlton, Texas, killed in Jordan. First Lieutenant Tyler James Freehan, 25, of Hawaii, killed in Jordan as well. And here was Donald Trump on the tarmac late last night or yesterday in the evening, saying that we now have to max out the Qatari jet with anti-missile capabilities. And then don't worry, we'll get back to it. Listen to what Donald Trump says here. Let's play this clip.
President, this plane does not have anti-missile defense.
Well, it has a lot, and it has a lot of capability. But as I understand it, in about a month or so, they're going to send it to have it be maxed out. So they're going to be sending it, and they'll have it be maxed out. It'll take about a month.
Iran's top civilian politician, who used to be in the Iranian army, by the way, MB Ghalibaf, said the following. This is what he just posted. Americans keep bringing new military equipment to the region and claim thereafter stopping the war, and then claim thereafter they're stopping the war. They've bet on our intelligence being as brief as their own IQ. We've reached the stage of mastery in recognizing these American games, and on that basis, we've prepared ourselves. Actions must confirm claims, not contradict them. Now, as the United States is now running low on munitions and, of course, low in our strategic petroleum reserves, we're now learning that in 36 months from now, Lockheed Martin may introduce a PAC-3 adapted capability effector, a new Patriot interceptor that may cost less, perhaps half as much as the current PAC-3 missiles that we're running out of. So those current interceptors cost about $4 to $5 million each shot. So when you see those Iranian ballistic missiles strike in Jordan or Kuwait or Qatar or Bahrain or any of the neighboring Arab nations, right? Each one of those interceptors that the United States is firing is 5 million, and they're not striking the Iranian ballistic missiles that are clearly hitting their targets and doing a massive amount of damage. Footage this morning that the Iranian Navy released launching drones towards U.S. bases in the latest wave. Let me show you this right here. And this is footage from this morning showing a Greek-flagged commercial vessel with Saudi oil that was just struck in the Strait of Hormuz after Iran's IRGC warned it, if you use the non-safe route, the U.S. route by Oman, we will destroy your ship. Seipan Navy, we will destroy your ship. And this came an hour after the Houthis in Yemen announced a full naval blockade in the Red Sea of the Bab al-Mandab Strait for Saudi vessels. So as I've been warning, the Bab al-Mandab Strait, the Houthi says, as it relates to the Saudi vessels, we are shutting down the Bab el-Mandab Strait. I think there was 2 tankers this morning that are on. We definitely know this one. There's been a UK maritime advisory as well that another tanker, I believe, was hit. But let me show you what this tanker looks like right now that is sinking in the Strait of Hormuz by Oman. I'll show you this photo. Let's play this clip.
Let's face it, after a night with drinks, I don't bounce back the next day like I used to. I have to make a choice. I can either have a great night or a great next day. That is until I found pre-alcohol. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. And here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Every time I have pre-alcohol before drinks, I notice the difference the next day. Even after a night out, I can confidently plan on having a great next day without worrying. Look, I won't lie, I was a bit on the fence about pre-alcohol initially, but after giving it a chance, believe me, it's the real deal. July is packed with barbecues, fireworks, lake weekends, and late nights with friends. Keep the good times rolling into the next day. Drink pre-alcohol before you go out.
Saudi maritime through the Bab el-Mandab Strait and Red Sea. Now, Saudi Arabia exports 4.5 million barrels of crude oil per day through Bab el-Mandab, combined with Iran's full Hormuz sovereign control right now. Saudi can neither export through Hormuz nor through the Bab el-Mandab Strait, effectively cutting off all oil exports as every tanker leaving Saudi ports becomes a target. A senior Houthi official says it's unacceptable for Saudi Arabia to continue exporting oil through the Red Sea, while Yemen remains under a Saudi blockade. And remember last week when Saudi Arabia struck a airport in a Houthi-controlled area. Remember the Sana'a airport that was struck when an Iranian plane was going to be heading there? I said, look, they're going to shut down the Bab el-Mandab Strait, and that's what's going down. So with all of this happening, fake ceasefire news was inevitable, right? Fake ceasefire news, as this image shows. Fake ceasefire news, Houthis shut Saudi oil exports and shoot the Saudi tanker. Then it goes, a senior Iranian source says that mediators in Qatar are now going to Iran to propose a 10-day pause in strikes to create an opportunity to revive the interim nuclear deal between Iran and the United States. Well, that's what's being reported on corporate news here. And I think Iran is just trying to, if anything, flag that this is fake news, because why would Iran go back to do an MOU after Trump escalating again? We need to just focus on what's actually happening on the ground, right? A new direct hit in Kuwait just now. You can see right here. Iran striking Kuwait, a new direct hit in Bahrain right now. You can see it right here. We believe there will be major strikes in Jordan. Now, if you just take a look also, oh, and by the way, I mean, if you look at what's happening on the map, the U.S. is deploying additional F-16, F-35 fighter jets, along with aerial refueling tankers to the Middle East. So the U.S. escalating as more U.S. equipment is just getting destroyed there. But I want you to take a look right here at this map so you can see what Iran is strategically doing right here. And you're like, well, why are they striking Jordan? Why? Don't you think they would be striking Israel? We haven't heard about them striking Israel yet. No, what Iran realizes is that the Iron Dome, as it's been called, yes, there's an Iron Dome in Israel, but it does seem like Trump and Netanyahu and U.S. and Israel have really created an Iron Dome in the region to actually protect Israel and to use the other Arab nations and the U.S. bases there as ways to block it. Just look where Iran is on the map, for the Iranian missiles to be blocked in these other countries before even heading into Israel. And then Israel serves as kind of, then uses its Iron Dome, when these other countries, are not actually protecting Israel. And it does appear that there are a lot of vulnerabilities in the infrastructure and in the security umbrella and in the equipment that the United States gave these Arab nations, which seem more equipped to protect Israel than to protect the Arab nations themselves. So if you look at where Iran has been striking, they've been picking out targets in Qatar. They've been picking out targets in Bahrain. They've been picking out targets in Kuwait. They've been picking out the targets northern Iraq or Beil. They've been picking out, just go look at Jordan, Prince Hassan, Mufaq Salti. That's where the three recent deaths were. King Faisal Air Base, Aqaba right there. And so that's where Iran is striking. If you take a look, on the map right there. Now, one of the reasons also, I think, why you floated the idea is there going to be a ceasefire or mediated discussions. Look what it did to the price of oil for a brief period of time. It reduces the price of crude. It's manipulating the markets, but then eventually, the markets are catching back up to everything that's happening right now. So that's where we are right now. You've got, we'll keep you posted every step of the way. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers. And thanks for watching, everybody.
Breaking news right now. My brothers and I wrote
Hi, everybody. Today is Monday, July 20th, 2026, and our dear friend, our brother, Pepe Escobar is here with us. Welcome back, Pep.
Such a pleasure to be with you, Nima, and with all of you. Today, Nima, it's a D-Day today.
Yeah.
There is a deadline today.
Yeah.
It's very immensely important. And this deadline was basically set not only by Iran, but also by China. And that's why this is so immense. Okay, let's break it down before we get to the big thing that already happened today, which is the Yemeni armed forces announcing effective immediately a total maritime blockade of Saudi Arabia. This turns the whole chessboard upside down. Before we get there, Very, very important. Why D-Day today, July 20, is so important? In the past during the past week, the Chinese were meeting with the Pakistani mediators, and of course they were talking their own channels of communication with Iran, which is a strategic ally of China as well, as much as Pakistan. And the Chinese were basically telling the Pakistani negotiators, look, that's it. You have to do anything in the book, outside the book, a book that you're going to borrow, intergalactic book, whatever. You need to have some sort of understanding until July 20. So you can get both sides back on the table. Well, this is, it's beyond a tall order. It's virtually impossible. They did try everything. Via the direct negotiations that the top of the Pakistani government has with Iran, and that includes, they have a channel where communications arrive directly at the table of leader Mustafa Khamenei. Very, very, very few actors. Well, in Iran itself, not many, and around the world, you can count, three or four, not even that, maybe two. One of them is the Field Marshal, Pakistani Field Marshal, the Chief of the Army, Asim Munir. And we get very good specific intel virtually every day, Larry and myself, on our channel, Transition Protocol, of what they are actually doing, and of course, the immense pressure they are in. So essentially, what is happening is that Trump, bragging all the time that he is bombing Iran every day, harder and harder every day, and of course, hitting civilian infrastructure. We discussed this last week. In the back channels, he is begging, and I repeat, begging. And this is not the exact words of our sources, but they basically said, look, he's calling Asim Munir every day. Okay, get me some sort of understanding of promise of whatever to get the Iranians back on the table. And as you know very well, Nima, and many of you in our audience, Iran has absolutely no interest in getting back at the table. Which table? And getting back for what? They destroyed the whole memorandum of understanding. They practically destroyed all 14 points of the memorandum of understanding. The trustworthiness of the Trump administration in Tehran is less than zero. In the political vector, and of course, much more in the military vector, and even more if you go all around Iran, around the Iranian population everywhere. It's a national consensus. You cannot trust the Americans per se as negotiators, and especially this administration. So it's up to the Pakistanis, with help from the Qataris, to try to find some Hail Mary pass of crystal ball, magic ball, or whatever to juggle to convince Tehran to go back to the negotiations. But then it gets even more complicated, because then we have two official vectors in Tehran, and correct me if I'm wrong, Anima. Araghchi has been saying publicly, look, even if there is a very, very tiny chance of some sort of negotiations, of course, we don't isolate negotiations per se. We'll keep going. But this is the diplomatic way of saying, look, we tried everything. Of course, there's nothing like zero diplomacy. It doesn't exist. It exists for the Americans. Not for Iran, not for other members of the Global South, not for Russia, not for China, etc. We will keep trying, but of course, the prospects are dire. And of course, on the military level, it's more or less obvious that the decisions have already been made. And the response by Iran on the American, for the American attacks, it's 2-1, and in some cases it's 3-1. And the intensity of the Iranian response is absolutely devastating. Of course, the United States, because this is a bunch of cowards and grifters, they are attacking Iranian infrastructure. But Iran, even not attacking GCC infrastructure, they are concentrating on the American bases. If they keep going at this rate, 2 or 3 or 4 of these bases in 1 week or so, they'll be totally devastated. The bases, for instance, in Jordan, they are being meticulously devastated, hangar by hangar. So this is where we're heading. We are in the middle of the escalation ladder. And at the same time, we have this deadline, which was it will expire today, by the end of today, July 20, Monday. The Chinese telling the Pakistanis, do everything you can to try to get them back on the table. And the Iran deadline expressed once again via the Pakistanis and the Qataris to the Trump administration, if you continue to bomb Iranian civilian infrastructure, all the GCC actors will pay. So that's it. We have only a few hours ahead of us for the end of the deadline. And then all bets are off. And if all that was not enough, Nima, which is the craziest thing, this is the day that the Yemeni armed forces, Ansar Allah, picked to install their blockade for blockade, siege for siege, and they're absolutely right to do so, because Yemen has been under siege for almost 12 years by Saudi Arabia, which the absolute majority of the planet has no idea about that. This is something that you only notice when you actually go to Yemen and you see the results of the blockade. So that's it. So now all bets are off. What is Saudi Arabia, now totally cornered, is going to do when they cannot export 4.5 million barrels or more of oil from the Yanbu port in the Red Sea? Because now the Red Sea is, for all practical purposes, blockaded to Saudi Arabia, Saudi ships, Saudi communications, including, of course, obviously, the Bab al-Mandeb, the nuclear joker. What will be the Pakistani response? Because Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, they have a military pact. Will the Pakistanis intervene against Yemen directly on behalf of Saudi Arabia? And then their credibility as mediators disappears completely. All the efforts that they put this past 2 months, mostly, 24/7, non-stop, to be trusted mediators between the Iranians. So they got the trust of the Iranians all the way to Moshtaba. And the Americans will vanish with one single move. So that's why this day today is so dangerous. The repercussions of everything that is happening today will be, in fact, they will be absolutely essential to formulate how this war is going to proceed and how it might end, in fact.
Yeah. Actually, the blockade is in effect as we talk on Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Immediately.
Correct.
And they're asking all these ships and vessels that are proceeding through the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden not to dock at Saudi ports. This is hugely important, because if Saudi Arabia decides to back down, says, I'm not gonna do it, we're gonna withdraw, or we're gonna come out with a new policy. The siege is removed and you're not gonna be under siege anymore. That's gonna be a humiliation for Saudi Arabia.
Enormous. Exactly.
If they attack Yemen, that's gonna be disastrous for their oil facilities and the way that they're trying to somehow manage exporting oil using the Red Sea. So the only option that I see, maybe behind the scene, talking with the Ansarullah, no, we're gonna remove the siege, you're gonna remove the blockade on us, and we're gonna be good, we're gonna get along. But I don't see the Yemenis getting along with that.
No.
What is your feeling on that?
You're right, Nima. There could be some sort of arrangement behind the scenes where Saudi Arabia does not vocally and officially and in public admits that their siege is over. But this implies ultra heavy metal diplomacy between Riyadh and Sana'a, which is not happening at all. And there's no evidence anywhere that this will start to happen today. But as you said, it's the only way out. Especially if Saudi Arabia attacks Yemen, Pakistan will attack Yemen. And then all bets are off. And then MOU, ceasefire, all that. The whole thing, the whole house of cards collapses. And of course, the Saudis cannot do anything. Can you imagine Saudi Arabia going in public and recognizing that they have been applying an illegal blockade of Yemen for the past 11 years and a half? No, they'll never do that. We know. This is basically a one-man dictatorship with a lot of court princes fighting among themselves between Riyadh and Jeddah. Politically, it's as filthy as it gets. In terms of decision-making, depends on one man. And as we all know, it's another megalomaniac narcissist. So the prospects are absolutely dire. But the key information, in fact, Nima, which is something that I had the privilege to confirm with my ultra top Yemen source only a few minutes ago. He confirmed that, yes, maybe we didn't want to do it now. We were holding our nuclear card to the right moment, which would be along the way in this war, blocking the Bab al-Mandab, and blocking the Bab al-Mandab for good. This is blocking the Bab al-Mandab to Saudi Arabia. Everybody else, in theory, no problem. So this is very specific. And when you read the official Yemen Armed Forces communique, it's a siege for a siege, which makes total sense. They have been under siege for 11, almost 12 years. I'm sure many of you know that the only way for anyone to fly into Sana'a, there's only one possibility. You have to fly Yemen Airways, which until last year they had planes. They don't have anymore. Why? Because all the planes were bombed by the Death Cult, by Israel last year. So there are no more Yemen Airways planes. Until last year, when we still had a chance to visit, you go to Jordan, which is the only authorized landing spot, departure port anywhere on the planet, airport, anywhere on the planet you fly to Amman Airport. You go through a relatively not straightforward bureaucracy. You get your boarding card over there, and then you can board your flight from Amman to Sana'a. And then vice versa. From Sana'a, you can only fly back to Amman. So this has nothing to do with Royal Jordanian, nothing. This was a deal between the Kingdom of Jordan and Sana'a, Ansar Allah, the government in Sana'a. So this was a blockade. By all means, it was a blockade. And of course, a maritime blockade of Yemeni ships as well. So now Yemen is returning the favor. Let's see how Saudi Arabia lives with that. Let's see how they live with all that oil from the East-West pipeline, being loaded in Yanbu port, won't be able to move. So if we had real diplomacy working around the GCC, this could have been solved diplomatically. Impossible. If the other GCC members were not so cowardly as they are, this could have been solved as well. So now, this is the old game. The new game is that you impose a blockade on us, we impose a blockade on you. Live with it. And of course, Tehran is watching this very, very carefully, because now, in practice, we have a blockaded Strait of Hormuz by the Americans, not by Iran. By Iran, if you follow the IRGC Navy coordinates, and if you follow the new authority, the PGSA, you can transit through Hormuz with no problems. You have to just follow the new bureaucracy. Hormuz and other Iranian ports are blocked by the Americans. So now the Yemenis block a port. They block all Arabian ports as well, which implies they are blocking the Bab al-Mandeb for Saudi Arabia. So that's, this is really highway to hell. We are right in the middle of it, Nima. And it's immensely dangerous, starting today already. And obviously, what can the administration of Narcissus drowned, Neocrassus, baboon of Barbaria, whatever name you want to call them, what can they do about it? No, there's nothing they can do about it. We already know when the Yemenis kicked the asses of the largest naval armada in the history of the universe. They can do that again. And if it's blocked to Saudi Arabia, it will be blocked to the Americans as well. Let's have an American aircraft carrier trying to block this blockade, coming from Suez, for instance. So it's terrifying how it always, if he can go downhill, it will go downhill, which was what we were expecting last week, right? Okay, there is this deadline until Monday. During the weekend, they work the phones 24/7. They will come up with something. In fact, there was something on the table, it's something that Larry and I discussed yesterday on Sunday night. We did a special show, and we discussed this on our show. That Pakistan has 2 or 3 extra amends on top of the MOU to get both back on the table. But that's not the real story. These are not amends. What Pakistan is proposing is what is already in the MOU broken by the Americans, including the end of all wars, and including the war against Lebanon, against militias in Iraq, you name it, against Hezbollah, etc. And of course, starting mechanisms for the Americans fulfilling the commitments that they said they would fulfill in the MOU. So there's nothing new about that. And of course, this follows the Chinese diplomatic drive, which is basically, look, we're not going to renegotiate anything new. We're basically telling you, Pakistan, do anything you want because it's in your interest and in our interest, Chinese interest as well, for the Americans to start fulfilling the MOU. This is it. Back to the negotiating table means fulfilling the MOU. But at the same time, we'll have the Iranians officially saying we're out of the MOU as it stands because they blew it up. And now everything is bilateral. Commitments are bilateral. If one side breaks it, the other side may break it as well. This is exactly what happened. The Americans broke it. The Iranians say, okay, we're also breaking it. So if you return to negotiating table, you're going to return to what? There's only one game in town, back to the mutually approved MOU. Are the Americans ready to do that? Obviously, no. So it's a total impasse, Nima. There's nowhere to go. And now Yemen, they introduced the now they introduced the move that, okay, let's go for broke.
Yeah, they just hit Saudi Arabia so hard, in my opinion, with this blockade.
Tell me how you read the timing of the blockade. How do you interpret it? Why today? Exactly.
My understanding is that the communication between Iran and Yemen is perfect. They know, they're so much coordinated. Everything they do together. And the timing is important because it seems that there are some sort of, today we've learned from the spokesperson of the Iranian Foreign Ministry that they're receiving some messages from the West. They want to negotiate, they want to do this. But the perception is, as the head of Iranian parliament said, that the United States is sending a lot of weapons in the region. And when you send a lot of weapons, it means that you want to continue the war. You're deceiving the other side in order to reshape, reorganize your forces in the region to attack Iran again. That's the perception on the part of Iranians. And they're not going to buy this argument that the United States wants to talk or wants to ceasefire. Doesn't mean anything. The only reason that would bring some sort of positive sign would be the United States removing all these forces from the West Asia. The day that they try to do that or withdrawing from the West Asia, that would be a positive sign for Iranians. This is important. And I think their perception is that the war is going on and it's going to escalate. That's why you see Yemen is coming in. That's why you see the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And basically, they're preparing themselves to be in a better shape when the war, the United States decides to escalate. Maybe they're talking about Israel maybe wants to join the war. We don't know that, but Israelis are somehow animated if you look at their media. But this is the way it is, the Iranians seeing the situation, Pepe. That's why you see today, as we talk, they're hitting Bahrain and Kuwait. Let me bring the footage that today there is a direct hit in Kuwait. Here's the video. You see, nothing is going on. The Americans are not attacking Iran. Yes, last night they attacked Iran, and then they said they were done with the attacks. But Iran is continuing the attacks on Bahrain and Kuwait because the United States has been they have been using these two countries to attack Iran. There is a new footage came out that you see they're moving a lot of weapons in Iran to the western part of Iran. I don't know what does that mean. Maybe the footage, I cannot confirm the footage is new or is an old footage. But if that's the case, it means Iran is preparing, considering, fighting on the ground or maybe
on the ground,
keeping the borders, or they're somehow feeling that the United States is trying to manipulate or doing something at the borders, Iranian borders, or they want to hit some target inside Kuwait.
And borders on both sides, from Khuzestan to Balochistan. So Iran has to look at borders on both sides because, yes, of course, the Americans can try to infiltrate commandos via the borders easily. So that's an enormous danger. And of course, the response is not 2-1 anymore. Now it's 3-1, sometimes 4-1. The agenda now is to totally destroy these American bases, completely destroy them. They were destroyed to up to 70%, 80%. Now it has to be 100%. And that's why they continue to rebomb the same bases one day after another. And now it's relentless. And by the way, we always had a reconfirmation from Tehran that they are very, very happy with the Chinese because they are using the Beidou satellite system, which has been proven sterling in terms of accuracy. And okay, there's an extra information that we can't go public with that, but you may have an idea how sensitive that is that the military help to Iran from China has not ceased at all. On the contrary, this is as much as we can tell at the moment. It's beyond sensitive because obviously the Americans will go right for it, especially now that they have a renewed anti-China campaign everywhere. So coming back to the key event today, Nima, it's what I had the opportunity to confirm with Yemen. The Yemen move today, it's part of a preemptive move. They did this today to preemptive what in Tehran and in Sana'a, and obviously they are talking about it full time, they identify as the beginning of a concerted, massive strategy against the whole of the axis of resistance. So it's not only against Iran, it's against Iran, against Yemen, against Hezbollah, against the militias in Iraq. So this Yemeni move already preempts that. In terms of in military terms, it's brilliant. And in terms of geopolitical vision, it's also brilliant. But when you go to Yemen and you talk to these guys, Nima, the guys who are part of the political council of Ansar Allah, wow, they are way qualified, educated, prepared, Asia to perfection. And they're very good at timing, as you can see today. So they completely destabilize Saudi Arabia, and they forced Saudi Arabia to show its game. Because Saudi Arabia, until a few days ago, they were posing as they were interested in some sort of accommodation with Iran. They were part of the pre-Islamabad 1.0 meeting. They were supporting what the Pakistanis are doing in terms of the MOU, ceasefire, MOU, and all that. Now we're going to see. And of course, in the middle of all that, only a few days ago, comes the Saudi move to bomb the runway of Sana International Airport. And everybody is asking everybody else, why the hell did they do that? And this is against them. How come? So is this evidence that there is a power struggle going on in Riyadh right now? Could be. It's an extremely opaque system. Nobody really knows what goes on in Riyadh. Nobody. Not even the Americans know what goes on in Riyadh because their man is isolated. So this could be evidence of a power struggle inside Riyadh. This could be something to embarrass MBS, or option number 3, this was ordered by MBS. It had to be. So then he has skin in this game, and he's going to have to pay for inflicting the counter blockade on Saudi Arabia. Is because of his actions, or actions that he green-lighted. Now Saudi Arabia is facing a naval blockade. So the beauty of the geopolitical instincts of the leadership in Sana is that they look at the chessboard as a whole. They see the importance of Yemen. They see the strategic place of Yemen. They analyze very well all the elements in the axis of resistance, and they plan their moves very, very carefully. So that explanation that I received only a few minutes ago makes sense. They had to do it today to preempt a massive attack against all vectors, against Yemen, against Hezbollah, against Iran, etc. So that's how important this is, and that's how dangerous this is.
Pepe, the United States, as we've learned and Washington Post reported, they had the reports from Europe that they're sending weapons, and it was confirmed on the part of Iranians. By the way, the head of Iranian parliament said, if you want to show some sort of positive signs, why are you sending a lot of weapons to the region? That doesn't make sense if you want to de-escalate. So he basically said, we're not going to be deceived by this sort of activity. They did this before, Pepe. It was revealed in the interview that Araghchi, the foreign minister of Iran, had recently, yesterday or the day before. There is an interview in Persian, and he said that we saw what was happening, with the American on one side talking about the ceasefire. They want a ceasefire, and we've been witnessing how they're moving and they're bringing a lot of weapons to the region. So the question on their part was that, what are we going to react? How are we going to react? Are we going to continue the fight, or we're going to negotiate? Because the United States was somehow asking severely that they want to negotiate. They want to negotiate, and sending messages from to Pakistani, to Qatari, all of them together. Then the calculation on their part was that what if we say that we don't want to negotiate, how is that going to look, in the eyes of other nations, other countries, which are important?
Global South.
These countries are so important. And then they have decided we're gonna negotiate. That's not gonna diminish our military power. And Arakchi said in one of his talks at the parliament, Iranian parliament, he said that I'm gonna do my job. You're gonna do your job. The army and the armed forces, IRGC and the army of Iran, you're gonna get prepared for war. But I'm gonna do my job. My job is talking. And if that's going to bring some sort of sanity, we're going to do that. If not, we're going to fight. And the same sentiment is happening right now. They feel that the war is going to happen. But the problem, Pepe, it's something deeper than that, in my opinion. When you see Iran hitting the American bases in Jordan so accurately, it's so important. And how are they gonna continue the war? They need those places to put their refueling tankers, their fighter jets, their equipment. In Bahrain and Kuwait are getting devastated with the attacks.
Exactly.
I don't see the United States putting the airplanes there, or in Qatar or in Saudi Arabia. Nothing gonna happen with the GCC countries.
Their plan is to transfer most of it to Israel. And if they do that, Israel is going to be bombed to death. Very simple. Very, very simple. Okay, everything that was in Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Jordan, etc., back to Israel, transfer to Israel. Okay, excellent. You have only one target, multiple targets in one very circumscribed area. So Iran will go all the way and bomb everything to death. Yes. It's the only plan B they have for the moment, the Americans. Because they are, okay, anybody with a brain can see that their bases are being exterminated. And it's only going to increase from now on. And what you said is absolutely correct in terms of, yes, Iran is ready for war. You want war? Okay, we are ready for total war. And if your total war starts today, we are ready. And not only Iran, Yemen basically saying through other means, we are ready. And if that starts, the militias in Iraq are getting ready. Not to mention Hezbollah, they are always ready. So this is it. If there is an American plan to, of course there is. We all know there is. We don't know the details because this is discussed by CENTCOM virtually every day. For a multi-pronged attack on all these nodes of the axis of resistance. They are all ready. And once again, this Yemeni move, particularly today, that's the main reason, to preempt all that. Will that be enough? We still don't know. It's too early to tell. But it makes the American wishful thinking much, 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 much more complicated, much more difficult. And once again, Nima, don't forget the major deadline, Strategic Petroleum Reserve, mid-August. We're getting there day by day. Now it's a little over 3 weeks. And of course, the idiot was yesterday trying to insert himself in the victory, the victory picture of the Spanish national squad, and he was bumped off unceremoniously. No, we don't want you here. That was fantastic because the whole planet saw it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. The players just said, go ahead.
The players just said, okay, out. We don't want you here. That was more than obvious. And the body language as well. Okay, very polite, shakes and all that, but the body language say, oh, we don't want you here. So that was, in fact, for the global South audience, that was at least 1 minute of, oh yeah, he deserves what he, that's it. But back to our, oh yes, go ahead. Back to our horrors. This week is going to be, wow. This week is going to be quite something.
So critical, in my opinion.
Yeah, if the Americans want to try something foolish, they will try probably this week, because 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now will be too late. Go ahead, Nima, please. Sorry to interrupt.
The problem, Pepe, is not just about the fighter jets. They have to keep somewhere the American forces. These HIMARS, these missiles that they're using, there is no capabilities in these countries, in Kuwait and Bahrain, to anyone else, other than American forces use those weapons. That's why they have to keep the forces in the region. And as long as they have these forces, they're going to get hit by Iranian missiles and drones.
True.
And how is that going to, when you look at the situation, Pepe, don't you think that Donald Trump is, the way that he's trying to help his position, his situation with the oil market? You mentioned how the situation is influencing the oil market.
Absolutely.
But what would be the fastest solution for him? As you see, the war is somehow escalating, and he has to have some sort of solution for what's going on. And Iranians are not, they don't believe in what the United States is talking about. They want to see what the United States is doing. That's the problem.
Action,
and the United States is escalating.
Absolutely. No, there's something I received a while ago, but I haven't had time to check. So I'm telling you firsthand that the Pakistani Minister of Interior, Naqvi, he arrived in Islamabad. The Pakistani Minister of Interior from Iran. He arrived in Islamabad today with a special message from Moshtaba, directly to Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and obviously to Field Marshal Munir. But of course, we don't know the contents, but the fact that this special message was delivered today, it's immense. We could, it's quite possible that this is Moshtaba's final position on MOU. It could be, that's it. We're not interested anymore. It's absolutely pointless, which, as you know, Nima, was his initial position, right? From the beginning, he said that he believed that the MOU was a waste of time. And he delegated to the Supreme National Council, okay, if you guys reach a solid majority, okay, go ahead. That's what happened. And now we see the results. So he was right in the first place, just like his father. It's absolutely impossible to negotiate in good faith with the Americans. So this message arriving in Islamabad today may be basically Moshtaba explaining to the mediators, and of course they have a very, very good close contact. Look, we appreciate what you guys have been doing, but that's it. If the Americans want war, we're ready for war. I'm not so sure this special message is basically saying, please go ahead with your mediation efforts. There's no atmosphere for that at the moment. And it's not what the leadership in Tehran is thinking. They reevaluated the battlefield and they are ready for a war because they are convinced that the Americans will relaunch the war as soon as they can. Any way, any scenario, plausible, implausible, taking, conquering Karg Island, which is beyond stupid, anything. And they're ready. And they prove that they are ready by the response to the American attacks. So the room of maneuver for any sort of diplomatic Arakshi-style conversations it's at the moment is as narrow as it gets.
Here is what Donald Trump tweeted, Pepe. Every time Iran kills an American soldiers, they will pay for that killing many times over. The directive has been passed to the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, and Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, Daniel Kane, and every leader in the military. And it means that they're gonna, because in aftermath of the attack, Iranian attack on Jordan, we haven't seen any important American attack in Iran. They were attacking.
You know why? Because there was the diplomatic back channel was still relatively open. It's what we were discussing in the beginning of the show. The fact that he was begging Asim Munir to find an off-ramp over and over again, the Pakistanis were working on it. The thing is, what they could possibly sell to the Iranians to convince the Iranians to go back to the table, considering that the Americans blew up the table itself. Nothing. So this is what happened during the weekend. But today is a different story. Today, the escalation ladder went up significantly, especially because this Yemeni intuition and understanding that they are planning a massive attack against the whole axis of resistance, obviously, the Iranians came to that conclusion at the same time or even before. Hezbollah also knows it. The militias in Iraq, the Hashd al-Shab in Iraq, they also know it. So that's I would say the schizophrenic, there are birds, I can look at the birds flying around here. It's great. It keeps my mind, appeased, at least in the middle of all this falling. The schizophrenic element in all this, which by the way, the whole drama is extremely schizophrenic. As much as Trump has every incentive to find an off-ramp and a way out, because if he waits for another 3-4 weeks, the consequences are going to be absolutely horrendous for him politically, for his cronies, for the American economy, for the global economy, etc. He keeps pushing towards the escalation ladder. Only as schizophrenic personalities do that, or psychopaths, or autistic sociopaths, and he fills in the blanks. He's all of the above when you think about it. So is there anybody that could rescue him from himself? No. You cannot expect this stupid Marco Rubio, who was watching the game yesterday at the Met Stadium as well. The clownish secretary of forever was. These people are beyond mediocre, all of them. Nobody can rescue him from himself. And obviously, in the past, we could imagine, in other situations, of course, we could have Putin picking up the phone and said, look, you need help, I can help you. Now Putin doesn't give a damn. He wants to end the war in Ukraine. It's a completely different story. So he's not going to get help from anybody. And the most dangerous character in this whole play is himself.
Pepe, I assume both Iran and Russia are now using the Chinese GPS, which is
no, Russians use GLONASS. No, Russians they use GLONASS, the Russian system. The Chinese Beidou, and the Iranians use Beidou. Soon we're going to have the whole global South using Beidou.
the whole system that somehow bring a lot of difficulties for the United States. And
yes, because it's impenetrable.
Yeah,
it's the same thing of using a Huawei smartphone, Nima. There are no backdoors. If you use an iPhone, yes, they're spying on you all the time. If you're using a Huawei, that's a completely different story. Same thing with GPS and Beidou. No wonder they are desperate. No wonder you have senators. The Chinese are harming us. They bypass GPS. They are supplying intel to the Iranians. Everybody knows that the Russians and the Chinese were supplying intel to the Iranians from the beginning at different levels. This has not changed. And especially now, the Chinese are supplying some extra stuff, which we cannot talk about it. But essentially, the Chinese are supplying key extra technological stuff to Iran as we speak. This is part of how the Chinese operate with extreme subtlety, sophistication, always in the background. They never announce anything that they are doing, and they are immensely active in the diplomatic level, especially via the Pakistani mediators. But in the background, they know that if Iran needs anything on a military information technology level, they are ready to provide it, and they are doing it.
How does...
Once again, okay, go ahead, Nima. I'll save what I was going to say to the end. Go ahead, please.
How does Pakistan see the conflict between Yemen and Saudi Arabia?
We don't know. This was my first question that I already sent this question. I'm waiting for an answer. Maybe Larry, we're going to have a show tonight with Larry. Maybe he's going to get some answers. My show is tomorrow night. So I hope between tonight and tomorrow night, we're going to have, this was a direct question. Okay, so what are you going to do? You have a military pact with Saudi Arabia. They have been slapped with a naval blockade. What are you going to do? Are you going to attack Yemen on behalf of Saudi Arabia? Are you going to do nothing? Are you going to try to dissuade Saudi Arabia from applying their own blockade? Are you going to be mediators between Saudi Arabia and Yemen? There are an array of options to Pakistan now, and now they are in an absolutely horrible position. It's the last thing they needed at the moment when they're still trying to salvage the unsalvageable MOU. Now they have to, they could have to become mediators all over again between Saudis and Yemenis.
I think, Pepe, that there is an understanding between Russia and Iran somehow. I don't know if they're negotiating, they're talking behind the scene about it, but their policy is attrition against the United States. They know that on both fronts, they're confronting the United States, and they want to deplete as much as possible the U.S. stockpile of missiles, name it, interceptors, everything, because each and every front would help the other. Iranian front would help the Russian front would help Iranian front, and I assume that they're talking to each other and about how to manage this war.
Of course, they are. They have always been talking to each other for the past 4 years, nonstop, I can say. I remember when there were Iranian delegations visiting Moscow, and then we will talk a little bit, and they said, oh, yes, the Russians said, look, anything you need from us, no problem. And the Iranians will say, likewise. And at the time, Iran was not at war. So can you imagine now they're both at war, and even more important, they both know they are fighting the same war. It's the exact same war against both of them. And the Chinese watching them both, they know that this is a war against them as well. Now with two of their strategic partners, Iran and Russia. And soon, considering how the empire works, directly against China. They will find a pretext. So that comes back to the major grand chessboard 21st century version of what decides the 21st century geopolitics. It's the war of the empire against these three interconnected, allied civilization states that are sovereign, independent, two superpowers, and when ascending power, which not only a regional power, but Eurasia-wide power. The new status of Iran now is a completely different story compared to 4 or 5 months ago. So this is the imperial war. So, and this one in geopolitical terms is do or die. Really. The US cannot afford to lose this war. They're already losing on two fronts. They are losing in Ukraine badly, the war that they started, essentially. They are losing strategically in West Asia. Can you imagine if they lose these two? In what state they will be to launch the war against a major peer competitor, a major existential threat to the empire? It's a joke. So that's why the stakes are so high. Obviously, nobody in the Trump administration inner circle, because they are beyond mediocre characters, they can see that. They can see that big picture, and they can see the repercussions long term. There are very few people in this administration who can do that. Probably the only one is Colby, Elbridge Colby, the guy who actually redacted the national security strategy. He's a xenophobe, essentially. And the way he sees it, yes, that's it. The top war is against China, but we have to win the other two. Look at the battlefield in both cases now. And of course, under a presidency that it's pathetic, doesn't even begin to describe it. So the prospects for the empire are terrible. And once again, a cornered animal becomes even more dangerous. So all absolutely horrible options in terms of Iran are still on the table, because we have a cornered animal as a president and a cornered animal as the body of the empire as a whole, with no good options whatsoever. And in front of them, they have a determined, organized, in full cohesion enemy. The Iranians know exactly what they're doing, and you can confirm that, Nima.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
all vectors. And there is no division. Everybody's thinking, yeah, that's it, and we have to do it.
The only division is we talk and at the same time hit them hard, or we hit them hard without talking.
Exactly. Exactly. Perfect. Exactly. But because we are a very old civilization state, we privilege talking, real diplomacy, not what they say they practice in the US. It's a completely different story. And if you want to, pull the trigger, we are always happy to pull the trigger. You pulled the trigger against us in the first place. We're just responding to what you did.
Yeah.
Nima, sorry, I have to go, unfortunately.
Obrigado, Pepe.
Muito obrigado, querido. And
Grande prazer.
المجرم وفق معادلة الحصار بالحصار، وسيدخل حيز التنفيذ من لحظة إعلان هذا البيان. ثانيا، نؤكد على حق شعبنا العظيم في مواجهة الحصار بالحصار، والتصعيد الشامل بالتصعيد الشامل، وتثبيت هذه المعادلة.
So that was the very loud spokesman for the Houthis, Ansar al-Allah, from Yemen, who announced earlier today that they were now blockading the Bab el Mandab. We've been talking about this for a long time. We've been warning about the possibility of this could happen, and now, at least according to this statement, it has. Last I checked, and this has been over an hour ago, when the actual traffic was examined, there hadn't been any interdiction yet, and traffic was still going as of about an hour ago. We'll see what happens next. We'll see if any ships get hit or if they willingly stop. All that remains to be seen, but the likelihood is that's exactly what's going to happen with the Bab el Mandab. You see there in the bottom, that very narrow strait across there. It's a lot easier to cut off than the Strait of Hormuz. And if you take that out of play, you're talking about about 4 million barrels per day. Remember, one of the reasons why the global oil supply hasn't been as much of a problem with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is because the Saudis, let's see, I don't have it on this map, they have the Yanbu port on their west coast. And they've been pipeline oil and gas across there, and then they've put it on ships, and then they've been taking it out either through the Suez Canal in the north or the Bab el-Mandab in the south. And now then the Houthis are saying that's going to come to an end. Now, if you take what's already being shut down from the Strait of Hormuz that normally would go through there, and then you add in there the Bab el-Mandab, then you have now a major crisis on your hands. We already have a real problem because just understand, just because of all the things that we've done with not following the memorandum of understanding, and these now, I think it's 10 straight days. If it's not already happened today, it was 9 as of this morning or as of last night. We keep fighting back over and over and blowing up stuff. Iran retaliates every single time, as is logical and obvious that they would do that. And the strait is closed. Well, it is mostly closed. As you're going to see here in a minute, there is a trickle of traffic going through there. And interestingly, it's going through on the Iranian side, the majority of the trickle, although that's inconsequential because of the amount of oil that is not coming through dwarfs it so that small trickle doesn't have any impact on the global economy. And now then, if you're talking about the Bab el-Mandab, that could be a major game changer here in a very bad direction if the Houthis are able to make good on that threat. And we know they certainly have in 24 and 25. They interdicted all kinds of shipping in there and just caused all kinds of mayhem in the Red Sea. Also recall that both the Biden administration, the Trump administration, and the Israeli government under Netanyahu all have periodically since that time attempted to destroy the Houthis. The Saudi Arabians have attempted for over a decade to try and militarily defeat the Houthis. They never succeeded. So it seems pretty unlikely that if they choose to go ahead and go down this path, that we're going to be able to stop it. We'll be able to blow up yet more targets in Yemen, as we have done many times, as Israel has done many times. We can kill people, we can blow stuff up, but we're not able to destroy their missile launching capabilities. Every time we try, we fail. The last time Trump did it, you may recall that infamous statement by Secretary Hegseth. He came on and just pounded his hand on the desk and said, yeah, we are going to shut down the Houthis in the Red Sea and we're going to open it for transit. And they either do what we say or they're going to suffer the consequences and nobody's going to stop us, or words to that effect. About a month later, with no fanfare and no pounding on the desk, they just said, okay, you know what? We have a deal with the Houthis. They're not going to shoot us. We're not going to shoot them. And anyway, moving on. That even though the Houthis never said they wouldn't shoot other ships, and they still said they were going to interdict anything with Israel at that time. But whatever, we realized, and of course, it just had come out in the open media, in the Western press, right before all that, we had spent like $1 billion in this short period of time, firing weapons and doing all kinds of other things, trying to knock this stuff out. We never succeeded. So we said, the juice ain't worth the squeeze. Let's just shut it down and just pretend like nothing ever happened. And we just moved on because that's kind of how this administration operates. That's how this Pentagon operates. I can't even just blame the president of the United States as much as I'm going to, even in this episode here. But the Pentagon itself deserves almost just as much blame for all of this stuff that's going on here because of the pathetic way that they're operating, the lies that they keep telling, the information that they keep holding from us. There have been more casualties, more killed in action from the Americans since I last talked to you. And there are also more wounded in action. And there's also news out in the Western media that the Pentagon has been hiding the casualty counts from us. I think it was a Wall Street Journal that was said they interviewed somebody from Central Command. It was one of the Western outlets. And Central Command said, we don't have to tell you that stuff. We're not obligated. There's no statute that requires it, as though that, yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to be, non-transparent. We want to be opaque, and that's fine. I don't want to tell you when there's casualties. Now, of course, I'll give you every granular detail in the world when we strike the Iranians. That's fine. But when it's talking about what we have suffered, we're just going to not talk about that. So that's pretty pathetic on that case. But that's not the only thing. Let me before I get into some of the real issues here that I've got a burr under my saddle, so to speak, that is really aggravating me. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you President of the United States. I'm going to show you Jack Keane, because President listens to him, but he's one of the biggest mouthpieces for what is America's policy. And I'm going to show you Secretary of State Rubio. In every case I'm going to show you today, and all of them today, it is astounding to me, this platoon of insanity. The stuff they're saying is just grotesquely untrue, or it's just embarrassingly stupid to say out loud. I just can't hardly believe what's happening. But before I get to that, let me first bring you up to date on what actually is happening in the area here, because there are continuing to be things. Kuwait and Bahrain have been targeted by Iranian missiles and drones again today. Both countries have faced continuous severe waves of attacks in the past 24 hours. Now, you're going to hear President Trump in a minute say they basically are militarily defeated. They don't even have the capacity. And yet here you see it on your screen, plain as day, wave after wave in the past 24 hours. And of course, that is every time of these 9 straight days that we've attacked, they have responded in the attack. Kind of sounds like they have some capability left. Meanwhile, speaking of President Trump, he released this just a little over an hour ago, actually less than an hour ago. Every time Iran kills an American soldier, they will pay for that killing many times over, he boasted. This directive has been passed on to the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, Daniel Kaine, and every leader in the military. So you can imagine that something much bigger than has been the case is going to come today. But is it really going to be that much different? I mean, we've been hitting them for 9 straight days, and we blow up stuff all the time. CENTCOM always puts out that black and white imagery from drones that they take and from the thermal imagers, et cetera. And you see a bunch of stuff blowing up. Nobody really knows what it is or what it's supposed to accomplish. We keep saying stuff like, oh, well, this is going to degrade Iran's ability to control the Strait of Hormuz and degrade their missile capability and their drone capability. And that's BS. We know that Iran put that decades ago under the ground. Yeah, that kind of stuff there. You'll see some here in a second. We put those things under the ground. So you're not hitting drone and missile capabilities and factories and manufacture, et cetera, every night. You're not. I don't know. You're hitting something, because, I mean, we can literally hit any target on the surface we want to. I don't think there's anything that Iran can stop us from hitting. And actually, I was looking at one of the tallies where I think it's Dropsite News has done a compilation of all the targets that we've hit. And it's everything in the world, to include, and I don't know if this is an accident or what, but a children's hospital that had to be evacuated. 200 patients had to be evacuated from it. There's been schools hit. There has been civilian infrastructure hit, stuff that's not, you can't even claim it's dual use, and then lots of other military targets as well. So it's kind of like we're just looking for stuff to shoot at. That's what we're doing. None of this stuff, as I keep telling you, when have you seen any imagery that we've hit one of these? There's 30 some odd at least around the country. There may be more, but there's at least 30, one in each province throughout Iran. That is where their control comes from. That is where their threats to attack Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, you name it, and all the shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. That's where their power comes from. Until you take this out, you don't even get to start the conversation. So why are we shooting everything except that? Now, of course, I can see why we're not shooting that, because it's just like saying, hey, I'm going to take this missile and throw it in the trash, because you're just shooting it at a mountain. You're just rocks. You're not doing anything, not causing you damage. So, well, we don't want that, because what good would that do? Can you imagine the video that you're seeing right now? Can you imagine instead seeing, like, here's a mountain and here comes a missile. We blew it up, and then the mountain's still there. The mountain hasn't changed. There's no damage that can be visibly done because it's a mountain. And all the stuff is, well, as you see, way underground. So that's why we haven't done that. But that tells you that we're not doing anything. So when President Trump says, yes, we're going to avenge our troops and whatever you've done to us, what was it he said? Many times over. You're going to pay many times over. So now, I don't know, maybe now they're going to go after softer targets that are going to cause more casualties, because up to this point, it has been facilities and capabilities, like a communications tower, the one that was used by, I think, Bandar Abbas, where they were using it to control maritime traffic in the strait, et cetera. We knocked that out. Well, now maybe he's going to go after personnel because he's saying, oh, yeah, you killed our guys. We're going after yours. Here's the thing. We already did that. It was last week. One of the shots that we had killed 8 Iranian soldiers. And of course, we could care less. That doesn't even faze us. We don't even think twice about that. But the Iranian side does. And the same thing that President Trump here, when he's so angry and how dare they do that, they're human beings. We're all human beings. Every one of us. It doesn't mean you can have different cultures, different languages, different life experiences, etc. But you're ultimately the same human beings, and we have the same emotions, we have the same hatreds, we have the same desire for revenge, we have the same desire for justice. So all the things that we're feeling because of these American soldiers that got killed, they're feeling the same way on their side, except it's more because also their leader has been assassinated. You saw how President Trump went crazy when he said these orders he gave, should he be assassinated, and to basically obliterate the country. They have the same feelings. And when we assassinated their leader, we assassinated his granddaughter. We assassinated, if I'm not mistaken, the wife of his son, which is now the supreme leader, Moshtaba Khamenei. So there's a lot. And then, of course, don't forget those 180 some odd school kids and teachers that were killed on the opening rounds of the war. None of that has been forgotten in Iran. So when they hear us saying we're going to, produce many times over and vengeance many times over, they're like going, yeah, we've been saying the same thing. That's what we do. And every time it happens, you just get this tit for tat for tit for this, for that, the other thing. And it's not accomplishing anything. And that's not the only thing. Yeah, that's the school building that got hit there. None of the people in Iran have forgotten about that at all. Meanwhile, this war continues to go on in the Gulf of the Strait of Hormuz itself. 2 more tankers have been taken out today and Monday from unknown origins off Oman. Guess who that probably wasn't? Doubt that was us. So that's continuing to go on. Meanwhile, when this monitor, this live tracker here, the maritime tracker, has said that over the past 3 days, 17th and 19th July, 30 confirmed crossings based on Kepler data, most of them being either dark crossings or via the main Iranian route. So that means either they've turned off their tankers or their transponders, but there's still ways to monitor traffic through radar and observation, et cetera. So people can have a pretty good idea what does and doesn't cross. And they're saying there's only been 30 in 3 days instead of the somewhere between 100 and 140, which was the pre-war period. That is not going to help us out any, folks. That's not going to do anything for us at all. But so basically, we're back to it. The strait is closed, and now you see, at least the claim and the threat is that the Bab el-Mandab is going to be added to that. So global energy is going to be a real problem. It's going to start to get more of a problem. President Trump said it on the June 17th when he signed the MOU. He knew that we were potentially facing a depression if he didn't do something. He knew that we were running out of our strategic petroleum reserve. And this, let's see, I think I still have that one up here. I do. This is the latest one. It shows that it's down to 316 million barrels, and that's down from 319 the week before. This is as of the 10th. So they're a little bit behind on their reporting from the EIA, but that is where we are now. So we're continuing to drop that down. Now, just imagine now that the strait is completely shut down, and the Bab el-Mandab adds to it. You can imagine either we're going to stop taking out of our strategic petroleum reserves, and then therefore the global supply is going to go down. Because I understand that most of the time when we say we're drawing down our strategic petroleum reserve, we're not using it because we already make enough for ourselves. We're exporting that. So we're exporting more than normal because of to try to keep a lid on the price of oil. President Trump is focused on the short term and the really, you can say, the myopic, right in front of your nose term of keeping the price of gasoline down, thinking that's going to help something. But because the fundamentals for after that runs out don't exist, he's building deeper problems for us later on that could have been avoided. So I haven't seen, I think the price of oil is $82 a gallon. Last I saw, $82 a barrel. So it's up a little bit, still not that much. Now I expected there to be more movement from the Bab el-Mandab, but once that if they start hitting ships and the trackers show that the transit stops, then you can expect that number to go up higher too. Then the question is, are we going to draw down our SPR faster? Are we going to stop doing it? Because now we're into the danger zone. We're into stuff that primarily is to keep the fields themselves operating, and also American military emergency supplies that have been preserved historically. And you see that there's no good answers here. Whichever way he goes, it's going to be bad for America. That's the situation we're in. Well, let's take a look at what President Trump is also saying here, because there's a number of things that are problematic. And now, as he's going to be answering some of these questions here, one is in front of a tarmac that was yesterday where he's about to go somewhere. And one of the questions, the first one we're going to show you, kind of annoyed him because they said, oh, by the way, you know, when this thing started, you said it would be between 4 and 5 weeks, because that's exactly what he said. Here's how he
At the start of the war, it would be 4 or 5 weeks.
Well, you keep hitting me. This is a far bigger job that we're doing. We were doing a little job of stopping them from having a certain capability. Now we're just ending it. So it's really not the same thing. What we're doing now is we're ending any chance where they could have a nuclear missile. If you look at it, after a week and a half, not 4 weeks, a week and a half, 2 weeks, we stopped them from probably, but I don't want to have the word probably. Thank you very much, Eddie. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. No more questions, because I can't even answer the ones before. What do you mean this is a bigger job? It's the same job. You set an unattainable military objective and you knew it. See, it's one thing is if you thought, hey, this had a pretty good chance of success and it just didn't go our way. That sometimes happens in international affairs. You may have the best plan in the world based on a dynamic and chaotic situation, and there may be a plausible path to succeed, and it just didn't, because the other side proved more formidable than you thought, or they brought in some new capability, or their resources were whatever. Something that's happens in human affairs, because it's not just one person doing something. But when you knew that it was too big for our capabilities, and you were told it was too big for our capabilities, that we were not going to have the regime collapse because of the assassination of the supreme leader, that they were not going to be able to just eliminate their nuclear stockpiles, and especially the reprocessed materials, that they were never going to give it up. And that if you attack the country, the likelihood is that instead of the people rising up against it, they're going to coalesce around it. All of those things that we knew. We were told he was told militarily that we don't have the capacity with bombing only to defeat Iran. Bombing is not going to spawn the fall of the government, and it's not going to be enough to defeat the military of the government. You just can't, for all the reasons we've told you a bunch of times. He knew that. And now then when he's asked about it, he said, oh, well, it was a lot tougher, but whatever, we're going to figure it out. No, we're not going to figure it out. He's not going to figure it out, because there's nothing to figure out. The other side now has exposed that you can't, whether anybody told him or not, now it's exposed, you can't militarily defeat Iran from the air only. And there's a big issue, even bigger than that, and that is in our weapons stockpiles. It's been on the news quite a bit here lately that our ammunition is going lower and lower. This is what I've been screaming every time we talk about this practically. Now it's in the paper. I think the CSIS, Gary, if you can toss that one up there, the CSIS has said, look, here's how long it takes to make some of the key weapon systems. The SM-3 and the THAADs, 28 million to 50 million a pop. But then you see this incredible amount of time it takes to make these missiles. 64 months, 53 months for an SM-6, and then the JASSM, the Tomahawks, and then the Patriot. I think that PRSM, I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure if that's the PAC-3. I'm not sure about that one. But all the rest of these are ones we talk about a lot. And I actually did a little bit of research, because that is an enormous amount of time to go back and look through some of these. And it turns out that the description I got was, it's like making one of these missiles. They said it's not like a factory where you have you make Fords or Chevys or whatever, and you just get an assembly line. You just keep putting the pieces on or whatever, and they just pop off on the other end. They said it's not like that. They said it's basically like making a small rocket by hand, and every piece has to go onto it together. And you have issues with getting all the supplies. There's like 100 different vendors. You have to get everything. So everything's got to be coordinated and organized, all of these kinds of things. So when you hear that we want to expand, and we talk a lot about the PAC-3s, We want to expand our capabilities from 620 to like 3,000 or 2,000, some huge number like that per year, which, by the way, isn't really all that big, but that's the aspiration. You can see it is incredibly difficult to do, and it remains to be seen whether we can do it, because it's not just a matter of making factories. It's also a matter of getting all of the additional resources and all of the other components that go into making these things, and getting rocket scientists to work. You don't just go down to the local Home Depot and just say, hey, anybody looking for work today? Why don't y'all come on down and make some missiles? It doesn't work that way. You have to have highly trained, skilled people, because everything is incredibly finely tuned and nuanced in the microcircuitry. I mean, just everything in the world you can imagine, micro radars, everything that's necessary, because it's basically you have to make a rocket that can hit a bullet in midair traveling at Mach 5. And you can just imagine how incredibly sensitive that device is. That's why it takes so long for all of these to do. So we can't replace these things in any time short. That's why when we said 3 years the other day, just to replace what was lost, that may be an underestimate. It probably is a lot longer than that. And we're at 9 straight days where we've been hitting tit for tat and going back and forth, and nothing's been happening. And we keep going down lower. So we keep getting rid of these missiles that we're needing here. So when you hear, and I'm going to show you Jack Keane here in a second. Actually, no, let me go to that one. Gary, let's go to the first one here, because Jack Keane's basically saying, you know what, we're good to go.
What I have been told is that in the time that, obviously there's 90 days, we've been conducting a diplomatic effort, that we've come to full magazine depth again, and the Israelis are at full magazine depth as well. That is what I know. I think we've got to ask the administration about it. I'm confident we can execute the mission the president has given us in front of us. And the reason why I say that is because we're fully prepared to go back to major combat operations, which would be 2 weeks with a different set of targets than what we're pursuing right now, along with the Israelis. And if we're prepared to do that, where the targets are considerably more exhaustive than what we're dealing with the Straits of Hormuz, I think we're in good shape.
Okay, I was telling Gary just before we went on the air, when I saw this video clip, the last part there, I just almost lost it. We're in pretty good shape. Are you kidding me? I mean, what planet are you living on? Look, you can convince Fox News viewers all day long. People watch this. You're a general, retired general. You've been on there all the time. They always talk to you in the most reverential terms, and they believe anything you say. Okay, great. So you've deceived millions of American viewers every day. Congratulations. What does that do for the war? Because let me tell you who it doesn't fool. It doesn't fool the Iranians, because they're on the receiving end of these, and they see what they can do and what they can't do. They have their own intelligence capabilities, but they also can read. And when they see the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Washington Post, when they're putting out all of these stories about how we're running low on all of these key weapon systems, and they can look at that CSIS list, they understand how long it takes to make these precision missiles. And they can say, okay, well, we also read that you burned through 45% of some of these. I think it was the JASSMs, and some similar amount of the Tomahawk cruise missiles are absolute premier offensive missiles. We burned through like nearly half of them in the first 40 days. I don't know how many we've used in this current phase here in these last 9 days, and how many may be coming tonight. But you saw in that graphic that was shown a minute ago when Jack Keane was talking, you saw a lot of the videos where there were Tomahawks being loaded onto aircraft. So apparently that is what they're still using even to this day. So they're taking that stockpile lower. And it will not be, understand this, it will not be replaced in a time frame that has to do with this war. We haven't even stopped shooting them right now, much less replacing anything. And if it takes that long for a single small rocket to be built basically by hand, you're not going to get. So if you use them up in it, what happens, General Keane? You say we're in good shape. We have to go 2 weeks. Where did that nonsensical number come from? Let's talk about that for a second. You saw President Trump just get dinged because he said it was going to be 4 to 6 weeks earlier on, and that turned out to be nonsense. And now here Jack Keane is doubling down on the lie by saying, yeah, well, we were 6 weeks, but if we only needed 2 more, we could have won the whole thing. We shouldn't have stopped. That's what he said. So now he's saying, you know what? Now we'll just go back to that. We'll just go back. We got the magazine depth, and magazine depth, by the way, for those who may not know, that's what they call the stockpiles of weapons that the military uses. So they store their magazines. It's not unlike the magazine that you put on a rifle or whatever that holds bullets, the magazines that hold the missiles and everything else. So that means basically we're full up on all of our ammo from our storage positions. So we've gotten them back from their original locations in the United States or elsewhere in Europe, et cetera. And now we've got them in wherever they're stored to fire, whether that's on the ships or wherever. But that doesn't do anything for you except for that's what's on the ship. So you can go through those in a couple of weeks. That's maybe that's where he got the number from. You can go through those in a couple of weeks. If you go back to all-out war, as he was mentioning there, you're going to burn through the rest of them really, really fast. And then what? You should not go to war unless you can sustain it, the daily rate, the necessary daily rate to engage in that war for an extended period of time. And you should calculate, can I sustain this war for a period of time that will outlast the opponent's ability to sustain their defensive and their counter-strike capability over a similar period? If they can, we'll just pick a number out of thin air. If they can do it for 40 months, then you better be able to go to like 50 months or something like that. But if whatever your number is, 3 months, what if they can go 4 months? Then you're screwed. They can only go 4 months, but it's 1 month longer than you can. You're screwed because you can't defend yourself. And now then they're free to operate out in the open because they don't even have to worry about stuff coming in. They can come up out of these mountains and do all kinds of other things. Right now, they are just draining our stockpiles. I'm sure they don't like any of these strikes, especially when it kills some of their troops in Iran. But I think that on the strategic level, they're saying, bring it on. That's fine. Go ahead and do that because I know that your stockpiles are dwindling and they cannot be refilled in this time frame of this war. But they know what their stockpiles are and they know what they have and how long it takes them to build missiles. Apparently it's faster. But we do know that they have a significant number of them, but they don't have to use very many of them right now because they just keep them in these under these underground facilities. And now then they're taking a lot more use of these drones. And I showed you last week, even on our bases in broad daylight, some of these Garins are getting through and hitting the target. So of course, if they can successfully fly a Garin into the teeth of the American military base, you better believe that they're going to keep doing those because those are something they can crank out in large numbers. And then they'll hold these better missiles and these more sophisticated missiles for the knockout blow, which could come later when we don't have anything. That's what we're facing right now. So when you hear Jack Keane saying that, just understand, just common sense. It's illogic what he's saying. President Trump also, Gary, we'll go back to the one Trump, Iran ammo. He also addressed this topic.
They've got some missiles. They've got some drones. They've got some manufacturing ability, not much. We control the Strait. They don't control anything. So we'll see what happens. But we hit them very hard again tonight. And we did that in honor of the probably 3.
So they don't have anything. Kind of looks like they do. You see continuous severe waves from Iran, wave after wave over the last 24 hours. You see they continue to hit shipping in the Gulf of Oman. Anything that tries to flag through or tries to fly through that on the ship there that they don't authorize. You see that nothing has gone through. He said, we're in control of the Strait of Hormuz. Does that look like we're in control of the Strait of Hormuz, folks? It looks to me like the Iranian side is in control of the Strait of Hormuz because before the war that we started, the flow was between 100 and 140 ships per day transiting back and forth. No one was in control of it. No one needed to be. Everybody could freely flow in and out, no problem. Now there's 10. And most of those are going out on the Iranian side somehow. So it's way beyond embarrassing now, folks. It's alarming and dangerous because this is the man that's making the decisions. We already know, we've had firsthand knowledge that he was told before this war started that from the intelligence community, from the military, it could not succeed. We can't just win a war from the bombing only. He ignored them and went ahead anyway. And now then we had an MOU in place that would have allowed him to either just walk away and then get the strait back open and get the flow of oil back going, which would never have brought the Bab el-Mandab into play. And he threw that in the trash too. By adding a southern corridor into the Strait of Hormuz by the Omani side, which was in contradiction to the memorandum he himself had signed just within days. I mean, truly, it looks like he wants to gum the works up, like he doesn't want this to be solved. I don't know. There's a lot of information I don't have, but what we do have doesn't make sense. What we do have does not fit the paradigm that we're trying to solve the war. And in fact, speaking of solving the war, another thing that just made me grit my teeth, speaking of Jack Keane, he said, you know what, diplomacy just hasn't worked, and so why even bother with it?
What are we doing? We're doing what we couldn't get done diplomatically. We removed our blockade as part of the deal, but they maintained control. So now we're conducting the battle of the Straits of Hormuz to forcibly open the straits, secure it, and eventually control it. This is going to still take some time to be able to achieve that objective the president has given to his military commanders.
Okay, wait a minute. Hang on, Jack. You said that it was going to take about 2 weeks. Now that at the end of this soundbite, you're saying, oh, this is going to take some time to get done. So which is it? Is it 2 more weeks and the war is going to be over and we're going to win? Or is it, oh, yeah, this is going to take a lot of time? Now, when he's saying we're going to now win with military what we couldn't win with diplomacy, are you stupid? And I'm sorry, that is illogical, because we had it. We had it even with the illegal, immoral, and unethical war that we fought in 2012, the so-called 12-day war, 2025, the so-called 12-day war, where we blew up their three main military, at least what's on the surface of the three main nuclear facilities, which we claimed were necessary for a nuclear weapons program. Okay, well, you knocked that out. So your job is done here. They will never have a nuclear weapon. They have always said they wouldn't have a nuclear weapon, but whatever, now you've buried it under rubble. It'll take 20 years to rebuild all that stuff that they've said. That's it. Now, the Strait of Hormuz is open. The Bab el-Mandab is open. Commerce is free-flowing. The price of gasoline, I think it was around, at the first of the year, was around $50-some-odd a gallon, a barrel. And we said, no, that's not good enough. And then we said, let's get into negotiations and threaten. We're going to go back in and blow them up. And then, amazingly, and who can say why they did this, but the Iranian side on the 26th of February, 2 days before the war started, with Omani mediation, said, you know what, we're going to agree to nearly everything you want. We're going to give you a nuclear deal that's actually better than the Obama deal, and it's going to give you a huge, huge diplomatic win. And we said, yeah, we don't want that. So we went to war. And then we found out that the war couldn't destroy them. So now we have to try to go back, like Marco Rubio has said several times, let's go back to the way it was before, where everything was open. That's now our objective. Only that's not going to work either, because then when we had the MOU that would have possibly started moving back in that direction, we added something in there that was designed to gum up the works. And now then we've gone on 9 straight days of military to try and get what's done. And then Jack Keane claims there that, oh, well, if we go back to full war, that'll be a different target set, different than what we're doing here. Well, that's illogical too. Why would I be going after targets now that aren't going to solve the problem? If there were targets out there that I could attack and it would make them capitulate, how stupid would we be not to attack them? How dumb would it be to go after some other target? See, Keane never gets called out on this. The illogic of his own words. You've seen there just a couple, just in this last few minutes on those 2 sound bites, completely illogical by his own words. And yet these are the people that President Trump is listening to. And he's making these statements here. Now, if Jack Keane thinks that, hey, let's go back and get with military force what we couldn't get with diplomacy, our actual chief diplomat, at least on paper, Marco Rubio, seems to think, oh, no, the door to diplomacy is open, but with a caveat.
I think we're always open to diplomacy. It has to be real. It has to be a deal that they're willing to live by. Look, Iran a week ago was supposed to put out a statement saying that the Straits of Hormuz would be open, that they would no longer attack shipping. And instead of doing that, they attacked 3 ships. I think that was last Friday or Saturday. So, I mean, their behavior has to change in order for ours to change.
Who attacked who first? The Iranian side did disable some vessels because they were not abiding by the authority President Trump gave them by signing the memorandum of understanding that they get to call the shots on how the strait is open for the 60 days. And when those instructions were not followed, they disabled a ship. It was the U.S. then that started attacking the Iranians themselves, not shipping, although we did that too, but we attacked Iran. And then that's when that back and forth started, which goes on to this day. And listen, for him to sit there and say, we're trying to find a diplomatic solution when I just showed you we've thrown every diplomatic solution in the trash. We don't even want a diplomatic solution. And it's also important to point out there that when Rubio says that, what he's not talking about is not diplomacy in any actual definition of the word. He's looking for surrender. When he says if they behave, what he means is if they comply with all of our demands and if they surrender and lay down and do what we tell them. That's all he's looking for. If it was actual diplomacy and negotiations where you give something to get something, that's what we had. We had it on the 26th of February. We had it on the June 17th with the MOU. And now it's unlikely we're going to get it back. Now I think it's going to be solved on the battlefield. And now then, because we can't forcibly take the control from Iran, then I think that they'll just keep fighting. And you can, if you want to start expanding your target list and go back to blowing up rocks on the tops of mountains, I guess you can. But all you're going to be doing is denuding ourselves even faster and making us vulnerable everywhere else in the world, because now then we're not going to have offensive weapons or interceptor missiles to fight anywhere. What happens if something happens in Asia? What happens if something happens with Russia and NATO? God forbid. I'm against both of those. But the point being, if we get into an unexpected war somewhere, we're screwed because we've literally thrown our strength into the sides of mountains for nothing, for a war that didn't need to be fought. And now then we're suffering a lot of the consequences. Speaking of suffering consequences, it's not just the country that's suffering consequences and the administration politically, but it's the physical, which is, of course, one of the things I never want to get past. This is the latest information out here today. Pentagon has identified 2 additional service members. I think I told you when they first said that one was missing in action, that was almost certainly because one of the soldiers was obliterated in the missile strike, and apparently that is what happened. And then now here there was a Private Isabella Gonzalez was killed in Iraq. Also, apparently a drone an Iraqi drone had brought down, and when they were trying to defuse it or something to that effect, it's a little fuzzy. Apparently, it blew up, and she was killed in that as well. The Pentagon is apparently not telling us all. Apparently, there are a lot more people that were seriously wounded in that Jordan attack. We'll wait and see if they ever come clean on that. And then there's this one here. This is now all the soldiers that have been killed that we know of so far. And there's the last count I saw was 430 had been wounded, and I have grave doubts that number is accurate. I bet it's a lot more than that. Every one of these people died, folks, died because President Trump used his ego to write checks that their bodies paid for. This war should never have been fought. And it's not just that now that we have economic catastrophe and a lot of things have been blown up. Our allies have been hurt. Facilities have been destroyed in Qatar, in Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, stuff that's going to take a long, long time to get done. That's all bad. But this is the human cost. People that should still be alive as we speak right now. And they're not. And what is, I showed you this. President Trump posted this before. He's trying to sound tough, but this is not tough, because all this is going to do, whatever he's going to do here, is going to spawn another response by the Iranian side, as it always does, another counterstrike, and probably that list will keep growing. That is not helping any American. What is going to help an American is getting the damn war over with on whatever means to eat your pride, eat all of your pride, and stop the destruction of our armed forces, of our bases, of the wounding of our troops, etc. And instead, here's what President Trump has said.
Well, we feel very badly, but those great people, those great patriots were out there fighting that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Iran has been very, very badly damaged. They've lost everything almost militarily. They've got very little effort.
we've already talked about how absurd that last part is. Obviously, they have quite a bit left, and there's a whole lot they can do, and they still do it. That's why these additional troops are dead today. So that is a lie. And it's also a lie that you say, oh, well, they died because they didn't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. No. None of those people signed up to keep Iran from having a nuclear weapon. A nuclear weapon they were not pursuing, and that shouldn't be lost on anyone either. He's just trying to make it sound noble and righteous, and it's not. It's shameful and derogatory and dishonoring to the men and women who wear that uniform. That's just where we are. Now, there is one last thing I want to show you about here. President Trump posted another Truth Social just as we were coming on the air here. Gary, if you can toss that one up here, because this kind of shows you, I think, where President Trump's primary focus is. There's been some issue here of late whether New York Mayor Mamdani is going to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu on these international criminal court dockets that come up. I haven't seen where that is. I know he was talking about, I don't know if he can legally do it. But President Trump wants to make sure that everybody knows that Netanyahu will not be arrested in any way, shape, or form while in the United States of America. And then he makes up stuff that he's fighting against the Islamic Republic of Iran, which killed 52, whatever. I don't even want to read the rest of it. Just take that off the screen, Gary, because the rest of that is just crap. It's just trying to make up justification to why President Trump listened to Benjamin Netanyahu. And we know that. We know it for a fact, because that's why it started. That was what spawned the war beginning in the first place, was when Netanyahu told him they knew where the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was going to be. And they said, if we take him out, the war can be over before it starts, just like Venezuela, whatever. And Trump did it. And now he's looking to, oh, well, no, it was really about, oh, I know it was about the protesters in Iran. We have to, no, it wasn't about the protest. Oh, it was about the nuclear weapons. They can't have, oh, wait, we already destroyed that too. Oh, well, whatever. They're killing their own people. They're terrible people, so we have to go fight a war against them. You see what I'm saying? It's all complete nonsense. Everything that he's been saying, everything that Jack Keane is saying, everything that Marco Rubio is saying, and if Pete Hegseth was talking here of late, he kind of went silent, probably for good reason, but we can certainly pull up some of the other stuff. That's nonsense too. Admiral Cooper, same thing. Just complete crap. Hardly any truth in anything any of them are saying, and yet they continue to prosecute a war they know we cannot win, and will continue to have consequences, both human and in financial consequences for our country. If this goes on long enough, as one of my bigger concerns is that we could eventually push Iran into developing a nuclear weapon, and they may race them on. They may be doing it behind the scenes right now. We wouldn't have any way to know, because we got rid, our actions last year got rid of all the IAEA inspectors. So all of our eyes and ears are now gone. There's no telling what they could be doing behind the scenes. They have the technical, scientific capabilities. They have the engineering capabilities. They could have made a complete new facility somewhere, and we wouldn't even know about it. And then one day we may get this surprise. Here's a bomb that goes off in the middle of the Iranian desert somewhere, and they'll say the next one will land on Tel Aviv if you don't stop. Something like that. That's something that could happen. And all of that was avoidable. None of it needed to happen. And all of it is because of the stupidity that we've been conducting our affairs here. And I pray to God that we figure it out pretty soon, or we're going to be in big trouble. I appreciate you guys listening. I think it's in just 5 minutes from now. We have Robert Barnes with us.
Donald Trump is panicking as additional U.S. service member casualties are being revealed since he's escalated the catastrophic war in the past 10 days. At least 100 U.S. service members have been injured since Donald Trump has escalated the catastrophic war in the past 10 days. In all, over 500 U.S. service members have been injured since Donald Trump commenced this catastrophic and unlawful war. Also, the death toll since Donald Trump has escalated is at least 4, 3 service members in Jordan, a service member as well in Iraq. In Iraq, that service member was by a drone where there was a controlled detonation of an Iranian drone that was allegedly captured. That's the story that CENTCOM is saying, but CENTCOM also lies about everything. And we know with Donald Trump's fraudulent numbers before in his entire life, it's usually a multiple of what the numbers that are being revealed are. So could it be 5, 7, 10x what he's actually saying? You know, state regime media CBS is reporting the 100 U.S. service members. So when Donald Trump's regime is feeding that to CBS, I'm skeptical, and I think that it's probably downplaying the casualties and perhaps even the deaths by a significant amount. But each of these deaths also are individuals. These are people with families, and these are individuals who have been killed as a result of Donald Trump and Netanyahu's catastrophic invasion of Iran, like First Lieutenant Tyler James Feehan or Private Isabella Gonzalez. Our heart goes out to their families. Now, this is the 10th straight day that Donald Trump has engaged in escalatory attacks and war crimes against Iran since the Memorandum of Understanding. As I'm recording this video, the United States has been striking hard in Iran, focusing on the coastal areas by the Strait of Hormuz. And while the Trump regime is attacking the coast of Iran, the White House is posting the following: trust in Trump. Voters overwhelmingly support Iran peace deal. Overwhelming support for Iran peace deal. Big data poll. Support. 60.4% support Trump's peace deal. You're posting that as you are currently attacking and invading Iran. And by the way, Iran is striking back hard at the Arab nation neighbors where the U.S. has bases. Particularly Jordan has been hit very hard. Trump doesn't seem to have the interceptor capabilities to protect the U.S. bases in Jordan. Similarly, Kuwait, Bahrain, Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. We've seen Iran also able to strike outposts in Syria, which CENTCOM denied. And now we know that Iran actually did strike that area. Similarly, when CENTCOM posted the other day that there were no U.S. casualties in the region, they knew that was false because they knew about all of the deaths that I had been talking about as well. Now, right now, strikes currently underway. Iran is responding with strikes of its own. We talked about the Washington Post report where top Army officials have been leaking to the Washington Post, also to the Wall Street Journal and others, that the U.S. has run out of munitions, that the U.S. simply doesn't have the military capabilities in the region anymore to even conduct this escalation. But nonetheless, Trump is conducting the escalation, and that Iran is striking back hard. And these U.S. these U.S. soldiers are realizing that they're not protected by any purported security umbrella in the region. Now, Barack Ravid, Donald Trump's stenographer over at Axios, who purports to be a reporter, just posted, a senior American official tells me about talks for a possible ceasefire with Iran. Right now, President Trump is focused on making Iran pay for breaching the Memorandum of Understanding and for continuing its terrorist acts in the Strait of Hormuz. In addition, the president will make Iran pay for killing the American soldiers in Jordan. These devastating strikes will continue until the president decides otherwise. But the talks between us and Iran are ongoing. And there's so many lies in there to begin with. I mean, the Trump regime breached the Memorandum of Understanding the moment Donald Trump signed it and held it in Versailles. But just the Trump regime plan is what? If you keep on bombing and bombing and bombing, you think the lesson after these 5 months is that that will make Iran want to do a deal. Oh, now we're going to do a deal. No, Iran has been escalating. It shows it has the capabilities to destroy these U.S. bases in the region. Iran is shooting out these salvos of 8 to 12 ballistic missiles at a time. 80% seem to be able to get through and strike these U.S. bases in the region, while Iran's able to fully control the Strait of Hormuz. There have been numerous tankers today that have tried to exit the Strait of Hormuz. A Greek flag tanker carrying Saudi oil that was struck by Iran earlier today and destroyed. And then there was another one attacked northeast of Lima in Oman about an hour and a half ago that was trying to make it out of the Strait of Hormuz in a route that was not authorized by the IRGC. And the IRGC responded by destroying that ship as well. Some data points I want to give you as well right now. In the United States, the average price of gas over $4 a gallon. The 30-year Treasury yield right now is at about 5.1%. That's the highest level since the run-up to the global financial crisis. The strategic petroleum reserves in the United States are essentially at tank bottom. These are very dire conditions. And of course, U.S. munitions have been depleted, which everybody was warning about. But Trump continues to escalate. And Iran, as I noted, has its own ability to escalate, not just in this region right there, but the Houthis in Yemen have announced that they are closing down the Bab el-Mandab Strait to Saudi Arabian tankers, specifically Saudi Arabian tankers. They released a video saying that they would be doing this. I'll show you that in a moment as well. Also, Air France has suspended all of its flights to Riyadh through July 25th and Dubai through July 28th, citing worsening conditions and worsening security in the Middle East. Flights to Beirut remain suspended until August 2nd. I think we're going to see more of that. And Iran knows that it's able to really, that it has the United States in a very, very precarious and vulnerable economic situation. Meanwhile, you have Doug Burgum, Trump's interior secretary. For some reason, he's the voice right now of the war. And so he just went on state regime media Fox, and he said, Donald Trump's bringing down the prices right now. No, he's not. Here, play this clip.
Is there any way to work around Iran? That is to pump more, to develop more pipelines in the Mideast, to get around the Iranian hump, if you will?
Well, yes, David and Jackie, there certainly is. And I had meetings earlier this week with leaders from Saudi Arabia and UAE. Both of those countries are looking at major infrastructure projects to try to look at land-based pipeline and other solutions to be able to ship their product and get it onto the world market. But here at home, of course, under President Trump's energy dominance policy, the United States producing more oil than we've ever produced, largest producer in the world of oil, now the largest producer of natural gas in the world, largest exporter of LNG in the world. And President Trump's energy dominance policy was always about selling energy to our friends and allies so they don't have to buy it from our adversaries like Iran or like Russia. And as you saw, the prices plummeted last year when President Trump was elected. They will go down again under President Trump's policies. He's the one leader that knows how to get prices down. It's increased supply. And his policies are allowing American innovation to do that at record levels.
Yeah.
Then they brought on MAGA Republican Congress member Rich McCormick, who said that we need to just obliterate all of Iran. That's what I would do. Here, play this clip.
Right now, we're going tit for tat. I mean, if you look at it, they attack us, we attack them, but it's measured. I'm a big Clausewitzian warfare guy. I used to teach evolution of warfare. I believe in dominance. We are the dominant world superpower. These guys are not. I would have been unrelenting to the end, but the president has a lot of more information that I don't have, and I can't speak to that. But once again, he's trying to weigh how this affects inflation, gas prices, and a bunch of international relationships, which I don't have to deal with. I'm kind of idealistic when I come to dominating this horrible terrain regime that's evil.
So MAGA Republican Congress member Carlos Jimenez said the following. Let's play it.
And let me say that, my condolences go out to the families of our servicemen and women that are killed, that have been killed in Iran. That's the nature of warfare. We will have some casualties. We've had an extraordinarily low number of casualties for the amount of fighting that's been going on. The Iranians have suffered much, much worse than us. That's not a consequence. I'm sure that's not a condolence to the Gold Star families of these young Americans that lost their life. But it is war. We are waging war, and we're waging it for a reason, so that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon.
And then you had Peter Navarro, one of Donald Trump's top trade advisors. He said the following. Let's play it.
Deal with Iran. If you think Iran would act responsibly with the nuclear weapon, just look at what they're doing now. They've got less discipline than a baby in diapers. They're just spraying their crap all over that area, like Qatar, Kuwait, Jordan, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
It's like,
This is the video that was just put out by the Houthis in Yemen announcing the ban on Saudi Arabian vessels that's now in effect. Play this clip.
تلبية لنداءات شعبنا العزيز المجاهد في الخروج المليوني العظيم في جمعة التحذير والنفير وما سبقها من تجمعات ووقفات قبلية كبيرة تعلن القوات المسلحة اليمنية.
And here's the audio of the VHF radio signal of the Houthis saying that the Bab el-Mandab Strait is closed to the Saudis. Here, let's listen to this.
Naval Force calling you on channel 16. According to the decision of Yemeni Armed Forces in the date of July 2026, including prevent navigation to Saudi ships because of the constant siege to Yemeni nation. So we warn all ships belonging to Saudi enemy to proceed via the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. In case of non-compliance of Yemeni Armed Forces decision, those ships will be in our target. Over.
Now, we'll keep you posted every step of the way. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7.
We definitely have video of HIMARS being launched from Bahrain, and this is what ended up happening to them after about 24 hours after they launched missiles at Iran from Kuwaiti soil in this case. Goodbye, HIMARS. HIMARS turned into fireworks. That's what happened. On our last stream, we did a 24-hour breakdown of Iran's most recent responses to the United States. And I've got another one for you. This one is even crazier, though. It is worth noting that despite whatever depravity the United States is showing in these attacks, bombing and damaging a children's cancer hospital, bombing bridges, so on and so forth, bombing a wheat silo over the past 48 hours or so, all of these strikes for the most part have been limited to the southern regions of Iran. And that's crazy. It's crazy because Iran, in response, is saying this is a red line that's been violated. We don't care where you bomb. We are going to go all out in response. Or, this is kind of like what we see as all out. We don't really know what all out for Iran is yet. One can imagine. But, okay, let's take a look at this. First of all, I want to share this with you from Middle East Spectator, who writes, there is evidently a very limited suppression of missile bases in Iran currently. Iran is launching very freely, comfortably, and at a leisurely pace. Why? Most importantly, because Israel's not involved. Iran is huge. It's impossible for the U.S. to suppress Western and Southern Iran simultaneously 24/7. Previously, Israel took care of the Western areas in Iran. Secondly, Iran is launching so many missiles and drones at U.S. bases that they themselves are being suppressed. Muwafaq Salti, Al-Adad, Al-Salim, these types of primary forward bases have been rendered pretty much useless at this stage of the war. The U.S. is now extremely reliant on its carrier fleet in the Arabian Sea. Lastly, in many cases, U.S. aviation is being forced to carry out secondary duties like defending the UAE, Bahraini, Saudi airspace from drone attacks due to critically low interceptor stockpiles. This limits their availability for combat missions. Yeah, well, I definitely don't think that Ukraine is going to be getting their coveted Patriot systems anytime soon, judging what's taken place over the last week. But yes, this is important to note because it's important to note for a number of reasons. First of all, going into the Ramadan war from the first initial days, I mean, it was very clear that the U.S. modus operandi was to identify and take out as many of the Iranian missile launching systems as possible, as quickly as possible. Over the course of the Ramadan war leading up to the signing of the MOU, the United States figured out that these missile launching systems are extremely mobile and damn near impossible to take out. Okay, they can get a few, but it's a lot of wasted capital just to get a few of these missile launchers. From their point of view, it's easier to just say, hey, look, we know where the mountains in which they have the underground missile cities they're launching out of. So let's try to just bomb the entrances and exits to these underground cities and delay whatever, operations that they can conduct from these locations for the 48 to 72 hours that it's going to take them now to uncover the entrances and exits, right? So that's kind of the goal that the U.S. has set about now. And in the meantime, they're hitting the south of Iran pretty hard. They're hitting all the areas in and around Bandar Abbas pretty hard. And Iran is hitting whatever moves and has a U.S. flag on it, okay? So let's take a look here. Iran, we're going to go in chronological order. Iran directly struck an American ground-to-ground missile battery in Kuwait. So this was the HIMARS system. It was reported that HIMARS were being launched from Bahrain and I believe from Kuwait as well. We definitely have video of HIMARS being launched from Bahrain, and this is what ended up happening to them after about 24 hours after they launched missiles at Iran from Kuwaiti soil in this case. Goodbye, HIMARS. HIMARS turned into fireworks. That's what happened. Okay, this is an interesting one. 6 different bridges, all of which lead toward Bandar Abbas, were targeted by the United States. They're trying to isolate Bandar Abbas, cut off supply routes into Bandar Abbas, which is the major defensive hub on the chokehold of the Strait of Hormuz. And that took place. Then a little bit later, we saw news that Iran had targeted the King Fahd Bridge connecting Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. Now, if you're expecting to see some video of like the bridge sinking to the ocean, I mean, this is a really big bridge. That's not going to happen. This is just one of those things you'll probably see shelling of every so often. But I will say, I haven't even seen a single video of this bridge getting hit yet. So I saw this reported everywhere. I've seen no video proof that this was even shelled. Maybe it was, maybe it got hit, maybe like right next. So we don't really know. All I know is that if this is a bridge frequented by civilian traffic, which it definitely looks like, I mean, you can see here, you'd expect to have some photos or some videos, but I've seen nothing. Bahrain Petroleum Company, BAPCO, was hit by Iran's ballistic missiles. U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters was hit by a drone just another Tuesday. Isn't that crazy? Like on the first day of the war, the U.S. 5th Fleet getting hit was like, oh my God. I mean, it kind of was, oh my God, because like they hit $1 billion radar systems. But now the U.S. Navy 5th Fleet Command Control Center HQ gets hit and everyone's just like, okay, yeah, what else? Let's go back to this. What do we have here? IRGC announced that the latest missile barrage of Operation Nasser 2 targeted the U.S. Special Forces Command Center at Al-Tanf, southern Syria, in a surprise attack. Allegedly, this resulted in a radar system being hit, helicopters destroyed, as well as a large number of American soldiers being unalived. Again, U.S. came out and denied this, but really we have no way of knowing because this is a this is Special Forces Command in Al-Tanf, Syria. So we actually, in no way, shape, or form, have a way to verify this. But the fact that the U.S. came out and denied it kind of lends credence to the idea that maybe it did happen, right? Let's continue on here. We've got some satellite images. Satellite imagery confirms that Patriot air defense system was destroyed at the U.S. base in Erbil Airport. We've got a lot of action in the Kurdistan region we're about to get to. Satellite imagery shows that 3 hardened storage facilities in the UAE at Sheikh Zayed military city were completely destroyed in an Iranian strike. You can see the before and after there. Kuwait came out and announced that power plants and desalination plants were attacked by Iran, sustaining damage. Well, wait, Jackson, you told me that Iran didn't want to target these things in the Gulf countries, and they're only going to target these things if the U.S. or their allies targeted Iranian infrastructure of that capacity. Were you not here for the stream 2 days ago when we reported that the U.S. hit the power plants on, I think it was Kish Island, Iran's Kish Island? This is like a tourist zone. They're hitting these sorts of things. So yeah, what goes around comes around. Satellite imagery from Sentinel-2 shows extensive damage at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. We have satellite imagery. This came out tonight showing major damage. This one's pretty crazy. At the barracks of King Faisal Air Base in Jordan. So Jordan is getting hit really hard right now during the Ramadan war. It was mostly just some attacks, few attacks here and there at the Muwafaq Salti Air Base. Now we're seeing every single major Jordanian occupied U.S. base getting ran through. We have more photos from King Faisal Air Base showing that accommodation buildings housing U.S. troops took a series of serious hits. Go on here. Some of these have photos, some of these do not. We talked about Syria. We talked about Kuwait. And Kuwait also an ANPQ-65 was possibly hit. Those are very expensive and rare, not in high production. Several weapons depots were hit in Kuwait. 2 HIMARS missile launchers, ATACMS ballistic missile storage. In Oman, a maritime surveillance radar in Salam, Iraq was hit. Also in Oman's Ghanam area, U.S. air surveillance radar was deployed, was hit. Jordan, they're alleging, this is, by the way, posting this is Arya Yadigar, who posts pure facts, nothing but the facts. In Jordan, F-35, F-15, F-16 variety fighter jets and refueling aircrafts were hit in 2 different phases of ballistic missile and drone attacks from Iran. And also, there was a drone and missile operation against several positions housing U.S. forces and mercenaries under U.S. and Israeli command in Iraqi Kurdistan region. And here's where we get to the crazy part. Oh, I forgot to show you this. Google Images is blurring out the satellite images of U.S. bases yet again to hide the damage. So let's talk about this. This is where we get to the crazy part. So the Zionists are circulating this map once more, this crazy-ass map here. So we've got, let's take a look here. We've got NATO. I know, this is crazy. We've got NATO eyes in Turkey, which I guess are allegedly going to help out. Allegedly, NATO Turkey is allegedly going to help out the Kurdish proxies of Israel and the United States. I know, laughable on its face already. Allegedly, at the bottom of this map, we've got, if you can believe this, we've got a Balochi separatist invasion coming from, as we all know, the extremely pro-Baluchi separatist Pakistani state. Absurd, I know, yet again, but that's what the arrows show, so I have to report this to you. We've got U.S. naval and land invasion force with tanks, I guess, all across Iran's south and some of their west. How they're going to get this supply of U.S. troops through the Strait of Hormuz or across this body of water here, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to do that. What else do we got here? We've got Israel coming in, flying in, and doing some airborne activities, I presume, all the way from their home turf. They're going to fly over. So yes, the same region that was like the sky was littered with surface-to-air missiles from Iranian-backed Iraqi militia Israel's just going to fly over and drop out of their planes into Iran. This, I'm sure, will go super well. Anyways, I know this is crazy. This is crazy, but I did just tell you about something even crazier, that apparently Iran blew up a group of U.S. personnel meeting with the Kurdistan Iranian opposition movement. We also have this released today. Iran's army reveals in a statement that the 65th No-Head Airborne Special Forces Brigade carried out 11 missions inside Iraqi Kurdistan during the recent war, eliminating 8 mid to high-level commanders and destroying 3 Kurdish bases. And then, oh boy, tonight, as we're going live, Iran targeted terrorist bases in Iraqi Kurdistan. Now, this has been a regular occurrence throughout the entirety of the war and this quote-unquote ceasefire. The Kurdistan region of Iraq has been getting lit up because this is the home of the anti-Iran Kurdistan militias, okay? And the U.S. has admitted that they sent them weapons. Trump has admitted they sent them weapons. And Trump said, oh, well, I hate them now because they kept the guns for themselves. They didn't actually use them to go into Iran. Now, I couldn't find it before we went live. Someone put together a map of all the Iranian border positions, like border security positions along the Iraqi and Turkish border. And it is absurd how many border posts they have set up. I mean, it is absolutely absurd. It's like every 6 inches, they have another border post. So to any of these, Kurdish rebels that aim to try and invade Iran, I mean, I don't think it's going to go well. I don't think it's going to go up. I don't even think it's going to get to that point because the Iranian-backed Iraqi militias have been bombing the hell out of them, and Iran's been bombing the hell out of them. Together, they've been doing serious damage. They've intertwined themselves. They've literally immersed themselves into the upper echelon of these various militia movements, and they have infiltrated them. And now, apparently, they know where all of their weapons are located because they just got blown up. This is Suleimania, Iraq, currently under Iranian attack tonight. It's absolutely insane. I mean, the whole mountain is on fire right now. And that is only the case. I mean, look at this. The whole mountainside is on fire. And everything, you just see these little fireworks going everywhere. That's because this is clearly where they had all their weapons depots on this mountainside. And it is just going up in smoke. Millions and millions of dollars of weapons going up in smoke right now. This is absolutely insane. So there go, it's just like firing off random missiles because everything is getting caught on fire. These are insane photos. And they can do nothing about it. I mean, once the fire starts, there's no putting it out. There's no telling when it's going to come to an end. I'll even find some of the more up-to-date stuff for you because I'm sure there is now more that we can look at here. Let's, as we've been live, they have CRAM. Oh yeah, the CRAM is definitely going to save the day for the entire mountainside that's on fire right now. This is what Iraqi Kurdistan is utilizing to try and safeguard their weapons caches. Brilliant. Wow. IRGC, you've sunk my battleship. There it goes. There goes whoever is pushing this idea. Who's pushing this idea? Is it Mark Levin? Is it Ben Shapiro? Is it Rudy Giuliani? Whoever's idea was to have the Kurds go and invade Iran, I mean, it quite literally just went up in smoke. So there you have it. Iran is really, really laying down the line right now. And for the Kurdish proxies, there's no coming back from this one. Before you
Kofi, follow me.